Hi folks. Hi, welcome to this week's Doggo Box. My name is Tammie and I am the chiefess at Clan Canines. Hope you've all had a really good day today. I've had a fab one. We were on our curly crusade. We went out to Harlaw Reservoir. It wasn't too hot today, so it was really good. So I'm really excited about this week's guest. I know I'm always really excited, but it's because I get such great guests on. This week it's the fabulous River McDonald from Edinburgh Dog Behaviour. But before I bring her on, I just want to tell you about an event that's coming this month that I'm quite excited about in case you haven't seen it on my page already. So on Tuesday the 24th of July at 6 o'clock, the fabulous Rachel Bean is actually coming up to Edinburgh and she's running one of her canine first aid workshops here. Now, if anyone was watching a couple of weeks ago, they would have seen the interview I done with her and you'll know how absolutely fabulous she is. If you need any convincing of how good she is and how much it's worth going on this workshop, then when this live is finished, have a wee scroll down my page, have a look at the post I did yesterday for the Facebook, for the first aid workshop, and in the comments I've put her CV on it. Have a look at that and you'll understand why it's really exciting. Hi Rachel, there she is there. So that's going to be on the 24th of July. Guys, places are really limited on that, so if you are interested, do get booked on it very quickly. And it's for dog owners as well as anyone who works in the pet profession as well. So if you've ever just had that sort of fear of, would I know what to do if something happened to my dog, you know, in an emergency situation until you could get your dog to the vet, then it's a really good thing to go on and take part in. Hi Scott as well, hi. So anyway, going back to tonight, I've got the fabulous River, who is an amazing behaviourist here in Edinburgh. She works for Edinburgh Dog Behaviour. I'm just going to see if she's actually here before I try to add her in, so bear with me. She is here. Okay, I'm going to try to add her now. Fingers crossed that we did last week with the sound. So hopefully she's going to appear. Hi Freya. Hi Tam. Hi River. How are you?
Hi,
Oh,
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. You can hear me okay?
Just about.
Good start. So thank you for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. I know, guys, can we have some likes and loves for River actually, because she was feeling a bit nervous about this, as anyone who does a Facebook Live would be. So show some love, please. But yeah, River, do you want to just tell everyone a bit about sort of who you are and what you do?
Sure, yeah. So my name's River. I am a professional animal behaviourist and at the moment a dog behaviour counsellor with Edinburgh Dog Behaviour. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Zoology and a Master of Science for Applied Animal Behaviour and Welfare. I began my career with dogs about 20 years ago, and then I kind of went off and I did a lot of work with captive wildlife, mainly orangutans and elephants and bears and things like that. And then I came back around to dogs, and I've been working with dogs again professionally since I settled in Scotland about 5 years ago.
Wow. So lots of experience then.
Yeah.
So I guess the question I'd probably like to put out there for people watching, because I know certainly something I've been asked by clients of mine in the past, is like, what is the difference, really, the fundamental differences between like a trainer and a behaviourist? Because I think some people get the two a little bit confused.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think one of the things that it was quite important for me to highlight is that neither behaviourist or trainer is a protected title in the UK. So really anybody can wake up any day and start selling themselves as a trainer or a behaviourist. And I think that, you know, it's something that we're approaching finding regulation for that. But I think it's maybe a good few years coming. I'm not aware that there's maybe a strict definition for one or the other. Personally, for me, and I think for a lot of other behaviourists that I've spoken to, the main distinction is behaviour work. You're often looking at you're looking to solve issues with a dog, with a dog or any animal really. With training, you tend to focus on the outcome, I think. So you would, you know, most people do their basic training with their dogs, so they'll go and find themselves a puppy class with a dog trainer, and they'll focus on things like we want the dog to sit, we want the dog to leave, we want the dog to loosely walk, and that kind of thing. Behaviorism comes into play usually where there's an issue. it's very much, for me at least, it's very much about the emotional state of the animal. So, what's going on internally in the animal, and how is that impacting the way that they interact with the world around them. I think, again, sometimes people think that it's sort of trainer behaviourist or something like that, because there's a level of qualification for behaviourism now is recommended to be at least a degree or a master's degree. And that's because of the analytical side of it. You have to pull together a lot of different things when you're looking at a behaviour case. You're almost trying to reverse engineer. You're trying to figure out how the dog got to where it was. So you're looking at everything from the breed, the genetics, the upbringing, early experiences, traumatic experiences, handling, training, previous training, all of this stuff, and you're pulling it together, which requires kind of a level of analytical thought, and you kind of have to be trained in how to approach it. But for me, there's a lot of fantastic trainers out there that do some behaviour work. There's a lot of fantastic behaviourists that do a bit of training work. So there isn't a clear line. And, most behaviour cases that I see will do a little bit of training as part of that as well. So there's definitely kind of a blurred line between the two.
And it sounds like, obviously, if you do take a case on, that it's probably quite a long process. Like, it sounds like it's quite a lengthy thing. So how does it sort of generally structure? Like, how does it work if someone feels like they maybe need your help? Like, how does the sort of process work?
Yeah, it can be. I've got clients now that I think my longest client's about 1.5 years that we've been working together now. So we've had to unpick a lot of things. Unfortunately, I think people usually get in contact when something has happened that is really screamingly obvious that there's a problem. Sometimes maybe they'll have let that go on a little bit long, and I think a lot of people admit that maybe they've had too much on their plate. But quite often, almost on a weekly basis, I'll open my email and there'll be sort of a panicked email where the dog's snapped, or it's bitten, or it's growled. I preferentially deal with aggression cases, but sort of separation anxiety and things, it's often when the dog's destroyed the house, or the neighbours have complained about the howling or something like that. So it's usually people getting in touch when almost they're forced to get in touch. There's something that's happened. It's usually one incident that's kind of pushed them to get in touch. I think, mostly it's quite straightforward. We'll have a chat on the phone. Either myself or David will sort of get some more details on the case, see if it's something that we feel is within my sort of remit to deal with. Quite often I've got people coming to me who've been to other trainers and behaviourists, so I might find out information and touch base with other trainers and behaviourists if you've seen them before. Generally, I'll recommend people to go back to that person, because sometimes people will kind of have this mentality, if that didn't work, so I'm going to jump to somebody else. And often it is encouraging people to sort of persevere, as you say. It can be quite a long-term commitment. I was kind of taught on business courses to sell. That's not what I do at all. I try to get the measure of, whether this is going to be a person that I can work with, and whether they're going to benefit from my style of working with them. At the end of the day, we have to work together to help the dog. I only work on veterinary referral for behaviour cases. So as a member of the Association of Pet Behaviour Counsellors, I'm a provisional member with them at the moment. It's one of our sort of part of our code of practice that we always take behaviour cases on veterinary referral. The reason for that is that there's just so much interaction between health and behaviour, and quite often you can see sort of health problems or traumatic sort of like a broken leg or something like that. It can either be a triggering factor to a behaviour problem, it can be maintaining the behaviour problem. And it's really important that I have that information before I go ahead and recommend anything, because it manages the risk of the situation, but it also protects the welfare of the dog. I could go ahead recommending things that the dog isn't actually able to do, or that the dog is going to be distressed if we try and do that. So it's really important, if there's anything that does come to light during the course of treatment, which sometimes it does, then it's important to have that relationship with the vet as well at the get-go, so that we can go back to each other. And I have a few vets at the moment that I work with, and we kind of get our heads together and try and, we go through treatment options, and, things like anti-anxiety meds and things like that are the common ones that can have side effects. So what's going to be the best for this particular dog in this circumstance? initial phone conversation as well. We'll also talk about some ways to manage risk then. So because it's largely aggression cases, obviously there's risk to people. So, you know, before I've even seen the client, I'll talk through, okay, how are we going to manage this? Can we keep the dog away from that particular trigger? Do we need to muzzle train? Is there things that need to be put in place now before I can get out and see the person, to make sure that the risk is managed? And also, again, the welfare of the dog. A lot of these behaviours are behaviours that are rooted in distress. These dogs are not, you know, they're not happy, healthy dogs. So are there things that we can do to try and protect the welfare of the dog until we can get a behaviour plan in place to try and modify things for them?
So
when I finally get out, sorry?
No, go.
When I finally get out to see them, so obviously we'll get a date in the diary as soon as possible for a behaviour consult, and that's usually about 3 hours when I first go out, and that's, you know, really getting into things. The first hour or so usually is just chatting through things, going right back, the history of that dog, where did they get it from, you know, what was its behaviour like as a pup, what kind of training have they done, everything. It's often, you know, I'm sitting there in somebody's house and I often feel like I've got 100 pieces of string really, and I'm trying to weave these pieces of string together to try and figure out what's going on and what we can best do to help the dog. And at the same time, kind of working with the owners to see what their aims are and what they want to achieve, because that's different. It always amazes me what people will put up with as well. I'll go out for one problem and I'll see something else and I'll think, are you okay with that? Because other people call me for that. And I think actually that's something that I'd like to highlight in relation to people taking on rescues is it's more important to know what people will put up with. And I think actually rehoming dogs out of rescue, one of the things that can really be beneficial is, you know, what will you put up with? Some people can't stand it if a dog does so much as one bark, and other people actually would like a dog that barks because it might make them feel safer at home and things like that. So just these really fundamental like characteristics of like what can you put up with, and what is an absolute deal breaker that's going to cause the people a lot of stress as well. So yeah, moving forwards from that, it's just a case of putting together a behaviour plan. For fairly straightforward things, it might just be one behaviour plan and we touch base by email. For a lot of things like separation anxiety and a lot of the more complex aggression cases, we'll work together over weeks and months to gradually sort of rehabilitate the dog back to it. Sometimes it's what's realistic. So not all dogs will completely end up being, you know, the dream dog that the owners maybe wanted in the first place. Again, sometimes it's managing the expectations of the owners. So if the dog's had a lot of trauma, it may not be reasonable to expect that dog to enjoy being petted by people again. But can it learn to ignore them and so on?
So, but it must be really rewarding though. Like if you know, because it sounds like a really long process, but if you can get to the end and get like a good sort of outcome, it must be for you and for the owners as well. But it must just be like a really good feeling.
Yeah, it really is. And again, I think because I've learned to pick who I work with, I'm really privileged at the moment. I've got actually behind the camera, I've got a board with all my clients' names and their dogs' names on it. There's about 40 names on there at the moment. So there's about 40 partnerships between dogs and people that I work with. And I'm actually almost tearing up talking about it and looking at those names, because each and every one of those people is just putting their heart and soul into these dogs. Which is actually really, it's really something when you see what people can do.
Yeah, excellent. So going back, you said that you deal with like a lot of aggression cases. Is there sort of a reason for that?
Yeah, aggression is so misunderstood in dogs. It's very difficult for people not to take aggression personally. So when their sort of beloved pet behaves aggressively, especially if it's towards them, people see that sort of in very human terms and they think the dog's got something against them. A lot of people will think, you know, I've worked so hard with you, I feed you, I pay your bills, and this is how you return the favour. But at the heart of it, really, when I hear that there's a dog that's behaving aggressively, I know that dog's in distress. Dogs are such peaceful animals, really, and they work so hard to get along with people and to get along with each other, that I know if a dog's behaving aggressively to the point where it's a problem, that dog is actually needing help. And I think I'm not frightened by aggressive dogs. So, you know, I've met other behaviourists and trainee behaviourists who are like, oh, I'm not sure that I'd want to take on aggression cases. Touch wood, I've not been bitten by a dog yet that's aggressive. I've been bitten by a dog in play, and I've been bitten by a dog that had been run over, but I've not. I find that because I can read them and I can respect those cues that they're giving me, that, you know, sometimes people are really disappointed. I go to people's houses and they go, he's never let anyone in the living room before. And I think, you were expecting your dog to bite me and you you were going to let it happen. But it's just that like communication with them. And I think, again, the human side of it's really, really important for me. So if the dog's behaving like that, the people are having a really tough time as well. And if we can get some kind of structure and understanding in that for both parties, for the dog and for the family, that's just really meaningful. And even if it's a small change, you know, it's worth it.
So how can people, because obviously people want to understand their dog and they want to be like, it would be amazing to actually be able to have a conversation with your dog and communicate with your dog. Is there ways that people can sort of like be better at that and get better at it?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot more resources out there now. I've got one. This is the book that I recommend. I don't know whether that comes out the right way around. Yeah. So it's Canine Body Language. I'll put the link in the comments afterwards. But it's just such a fantastic book for reading a lot of the subtler signals that dogs are giving off. Dogs work really, really hard to communicate, really hard. And by the time dogs are getting to the point of growling, they've probably already given hundreds of signals that they've been unconscious.
Oh, we've just lost her. Oh, there we go. You're back.
Oh, there we go. Aware that my cat is kicking off something crazy outside as well. He's yelling his head off. Yeah, so, you know, being able to understand those lower level signals, there's things like tongue flicks and, you know, little lip smacks and things like that. I was out with a dog today who we think is actually in pain. We're trying to get to the bottom of that. But he just did this beautiful communication. When another dog approached him, he did a single tongue flick and looked away. And we took that signal and we said, cool, let's go. And this was a dog that, you know, a few weeks ago would have been lunging at the other dog and barking. But we started to say to that dog, we understand what you're saying and we're going to leave with you so that you don't have to have a confrontation. And if we can read those lower level signals, then we can show the dogs that it work. A lot of dogs that have got to the point of growling and snapping and biting, they've learned that nothing else works. And if a dog snaps at you, you move. Like, with the best will in the world, you're going to get out of the way. So it's a very effective way, once they get up to growling and snapping and that kind of thing, it's a very effective way of communicating with humans who are not very good at reading the subtler cues. So yeah, I think that book is a great start point for learning.
There was a great on one of the workshops that I went to yours, you showed us like a really good picture of like a ladder, the ladder of thing. I don't know if we can put that in the comments afterwards. I don't know if you can post photos.
Yeah, totally.
Way of doing it, because I think that's a really good.
That was envisaged by a behaviourist called Kendal Shepherd, and it's very much this idea that dogs will climb this ladder. Any normal dog will climb the ladder and they'll start with these little tongue flicks and yawns. About halfway up, the one that always breaks my heart is that they'll walk away. Dogs will walk away if they're not happy, but often they don't have a choice. They're on lead, or, you know, they've been forced into situations so many times that they don't know that that's an option anymore. But yeah, I'll stick that in the comments as well, along with a link for our mailing list, because we are planning more workshops and things for the general public. So just getting people reading their dogs better and communicating with their dogs better.
Fantastic. I've just got a couple. I'm going to scroll down because there's a couple of questions being asked, so I don't want to miss any. So Jude is asking, what would you advise a dog walker to do if they come across a case of separation anxiety? How can we help our clients with this?
I think, to be honest, with separation anxiety, very much get them onto a behaviourist who deals with separation anxiety as soon as possible. Separation anxiety in dogs is the equivalent of a human panic attack. It's a very extreme response. Again, often it's only considered to be extreme when the dog destroys something or if the dog's howling. I would actually encourage, and I encourage people more and more to invest in, you can get these little cameras. One here actually. I think it's still plugged in. Just unplug it. This is like £30 or something off Amazon, and you can watch from your phone. It's called Freddy, this one. It's got night vision as well. But it's a really good exercise for anybody, and I encourage everyone.
No.
Sorry. You got me again.
Yes.
I disabled everything I could disable on this phone, and it's still. I said to Tammie, my worst fear is that somebody's going to phone me having a dog emergency while I'm partway through doing this. But yeah, actually just putting a camera on your dogs, and if you see anything such as whining, pacing, inability to settle, excessive salivating, it doesn't always have to be destroying things.
Yeah.
It's an incredible process to help dogs through with separation anxiety. It takes a lot of time and patience and investment from the owners, but like most behaviour problems, they won't grow out of it. They will grow in. They're much more likely to grow into it. I hope that helps.
Definitely. And maybe again at the end, I don't know, that little camera, could you put a link on to what that is in case
totally.
people were interested in getting it? So I've got a question here from Tam. It looks like a long one. Hang on a second. So Tam, my dog Brenna is a rescue, about 13 or 14 years old, could be older. She's had her for 9 years. Recently she's been, oh hang on, what have I done?
I thought that was me for a second.
No, I don't know. Oh, I think I've turned I don't even know how to turn it back. Oh God. Hang on a second. Oh, there we go.
I'm waiting for mine to fall off because the suction cup keeps falling off.
It's happened to me before.
I hate technology.
Hang on, where is she? Okay, so she's had the dog 9 years. It's about 13-ish, a rescue dog. Recently, she's been displaying some odd behaviour, like running off late at night after her last wee, heading 2 miles back to her old address that we lived in 4 years ago, trying to climb out the window through the blinds, which she did today while I was out. She's due a vet check anyway, but could it be that she's going senile, do you think? She's very highly strung and extremely sensitive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want to give too much in relation to a specific case because the best advice I can give is speak to your vet about it as the first port of call, and then get a referral to a behaviourist. It's entirely possible that her age does have an impact on that, so it can be cognitive dysfunction. It certainly could be. I find that older dogs start to get a little bit less secure as well, so they start to forget things in the same way that people do. So they can start showing more signs of separation distress as well. Obviously, for most dogs, their people are their safety blanket, so being left becomes more distressing for them. But yeah, that's great. If the vet check is due, then definitely. I would even say keep a diary, or make notes about it, so that when you go to your vet, you've actually got some information, even a wee video if she's doing strange behaviour. Sometimes staring off into space and some things like that, they start to display that kind of behaviour. But any little videos, without obviously forcing the dog into a situation where it would display the behaviour. But all of that kind of stuff can be really useful for the vet in the first instance. And then if the vet thinks appropriate, they'll either recommend treatment or refer on to a behaviourist.
Fab. Guys, if anyone else has got any other questions, just type them up now. I know it can sometimes take a wee minute to type stuff up, so we will blather on while you ask me. So just trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything else you particularly would like to talk about or cover? So
I think actually sort of actually just ending up sort of knowing Tammie through Tammie coming to my workshops. One of the things I'm really passionate about is education, and especially providing opportunities for dog professionals to learn from each other and to enhance the sort of a service that they're providing for their clients and their dogs, basically, even more so than the clients. I'm seeing a lot of cases whereby there are dog walkers, doggy daycare, boarding kennels, groomers and other dog professionals are implicated. It can make or break sometimes a behaviour case. So, it's really, really important for that, behavioural awareness, especially for dog walkers and daycare. The activities that the dogs do at daycare or on a dog walk can have such a massive impact on how the dog behaves. We're seeing more and more what I kind of see as adrenaline junkie dogs that just, they get taken to the park and they just ping after a tennis ball. They often have very low frustration tolerance. So, I've seen a couple in the last month that have just been, they've just got so frustrated that they've then gone for a dog next to them, which has been completely out of character in the context of the dog that you see them when they're not, high as a kite running around after a ball. So things like getting dogs onto scent games and things like that when out and about. Daycares where there's actually managed downtime as well for the dogs, that they're not just running riot. And and an awareness of the way dogs interact, because quite often in a group you'll get you'll get dogs that are much more rambunctious and don't necessarily know when to stop, and then you get very shy dogs that suffer terribly when they start to build a lot of anxiety. And again, often when we backtrack it, we'll find that this dog has actually been in situations that, the assumption on the face of it is that the dog loves going to daycare because it always comes home tired. But actually, when we go and look at what's happening, the dog's exhausted because it's been trying to manage all these interactions and trying to signal to other dogs all day long. And that's not particularly healthy.
No, definitely. I know that, like, so I've been to two of your workshops now, and like, I think I've said in a couple of the posts about this, like, I just find it completely fascinating and so interesting. It's been like, I've learned loads from it. I would definitely encourage anyone else, whether you're a pet professional or just a pet owner, I think they're really good things to go to. And I know I've been pestering you to try to create something specifically for dog walkers, so hopefully you'll do that sometime.
Yeah, I think it would be... We'll get to it. Just seeing what's out there as well. There's so many groups up and down the country. I think, unfortunately, in Scotland we're a bit thin on the ground at the moment, and hopefully that's something we can try and get more. There's a lot more expertise down in England. There's not so much up here, but actually, even teaming up with people and traveling down, there's some fantastic conferences going on, and getting, really getting into, the people that are putting information out there. You don't have to agree with everything they say either. There's a lot of sort of cliquiness with the dog world, as there is with probably a lot of other worlds. But you can just keep learning and use that information as you see appropriate. But get out there and keep learning.
Oh, fantastic. I'm very surprised we've not had any other questions. I'm just wondering. It's
probably because I said I can't give specific advice, so people will usually say, what do I do with, I don't do it anymore. If I'm out for a drink and somebody asks me what I do and they say, oh, maybe you can tell me what to do with my dog, the answer is I'll give you if they're a friend, the answer is I'll give you somebody else's name. You can't without, it's not ethical if you haven't seen the dog and the dog hasn't got a vet referral. There'll be 100 things. So, maybe I've put people off. Sorry.
No, but I think it's absolutely true. It's like, I don't know, it's like going into saying to a GP, oh, what's wrong with me, and like expecting them to be able to diagnose it in like 2 minutes flat. It's not possible. So, but guys, if you are enjoying what we're saying, please hit the likes and loves. I saw a lot fly up a minute ago, so that was lovely. And I think just thank you so much for coming on. It's been really interesting. I hope people have found it good. I'm sure they have. There we go, there's a wee part. But thank you so much. And so what we'll do is we will put loads of links in the comments afterwards, so how you can get onto River's mailing list. That would be a really good one, I think, especially if any other workshops coming up. And what else did we say? The link to the camera and possibly the image of that ladder. Honestly, guys, that book, you put all the books out at that last workshop, I literally bought them all.
Did you? Good, they're great books.
Absolutely fantastic books. And that one is really good. And I think that'd be really good for dog owners as well, who just it's just so clear. Hang on, I think the question's up here. Oh, no, it's not. That's the one I'm looking at.
No. Just a thumbs up.
Oh, there's Lisa, thanks. Perfect. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Everyone's sending lots of love.
Thank you, guys.
But thank you for the time.
That's what I said to you, isn't it? Somebody's just saying there that I could talk canine behaviour all day, and that's what I actually said to Tammie. I was like, are you sure you want me to start talking? Because I won't necessarily stop.
9 o'clock in my got to go now.
Lifelong learning. Science is moving on all the time. It's really important, I think, to look at where information's coming from. Don't believe the guy down the pub or your auntie who's had dogs all her life, because actually dogs are complicated things. And I think finding good reliable resources and always ask for those references. Where's that information coming from? Dogs, we've moved on from this idea that dogs are wolves. It's still out there. It's still out there that, I need to be the pack leader and that kind of thing.
And I think that was something that you were talking about that last workshop, and I think that's so important because people still think of them as like the alpha, don't they, and the pack leader and stuff, and it's just but I think it's because it's been disproved for quite a while now, wasn't it? Was it the 80s or 90s? It was this.
I believe that the guy the guy who did the original publishing of the research, where they thought that they were alpha, actually the next year, his research, he realised his mistake, but it's just taken a really long time to filter through. It's it's
a shame.
Dogs are not wolves. Wolves don't have, I think it's important to highlight that as well, even wolves don't have that that hierarchy that people think that they have, this dominant structure. But yeah, just encourage people to just keep learning and not be afraid to learn, not be afraid to pick up a book, not be afraid to ask questions. There's, I'm finding we've not got a lot in the way of sort of regulation in Scotland. I think it will come in. I don't know even if it will come in the same way as it will down in England and the rest of the UK, but we've got lots of dog professionals that are really keen, really passionate. We've got people in rescues, dog walkers, daycare, all of it, groomers. And I think actually just chatting about dog behaviour with each other and not being afraid to do that, and not feeling like, I think it's got to be a safe thing for people to want to talk about and not feel like they're going to be criticised. I quite often have people sheepishly tell me their dog sleeps in their bed and things like that, as if I'm going to tell them off. Your dog can sleep wherever it likes. There's not a wrong thing to do. And I get phone calls from people saying, I've broken him, I've broken the dog. It's pretty hard to do, but yeah, talk to each other and just keep learning. I think that's my
excellent. Jude's asking about books. Would you maybe in the comments as well afterwards maybe put a link to some of your best recommended books for people to read?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I'll do that.
I'm giving you loads of homework. If not, I can put the link to certainly the ones that I've got that you recommended to me. So I'll give you a break. I'll do that, and you can do.
I need to open a bookshop as well. I'm always recommending books to people. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I will do that.
Perfect.
And obviously, people like our Facebook page as well. And if they want to ask questions directly at Edinburgh Dog Behaviour, you can just our Edinburgh Dog Behaviour Facebook page and just message us, and we'll get back to you individually. All right.
Perfect. River, thank you so much, and I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yes. Cheers. You take care.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.